Right, hello and welcome to part 2 of sorting this Matbro out. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll link it in the description. But basically, part 1 was taking it in bits, seeing what the damage is, seeing what needs doing. So basically, everything needs line barring now. You've seen how bad they are. This one, in the other video, I did say that I might not have to line bar this one, but when you put a new pin in, you put this new bit of pin in, you can see how slack it is, so I'm going to have to line bar that one as well. But because this bottom hole is smaller than the rest of the holes, it makes it a little bit more complicated. So I've put a plan together of how I'm going to do it. So obviously these plates are to come out, but I haven't got around to taking them out yet. But a few people did suggest in the other video, why don't I just bar that out to the same size, so they're all the same size. But cleverer people than me designed it, and they've designed it like that for a reason, so I'm going to leave it with this bottom hole smaller than the top hole. But because of this extra plate added on, a standard pin won't fit, so what I can do is I can bar this one out and that one out slightly bigger, so it saves me having to build it back up again, and then I'll just make a new pin that's slightly bigger to match the holes. So that'll save one job, so all I've got to do is bar them two out. Then these bottom two, I'll pre-bar them, weld them back up, and then bar them back to standard size again, so that a standard pin will fit. So because the bottom hole is smaller than the top hole, I've had to make a few new bits to be able to do the job. So what I've had to make is a smaller boring bar. This one's 30mm to do the top hole, and then that one will join on to this 40mm boring bar. So I've drilled the holes in them where they need to be. I haven't bothered drilling any other holes yet because that's the only holes that I need for this job. And then I've had to make another bar with like a flexible drive, but you'll see what I do with that when I get it set up. So I'll get these bearings and these two boring bars set up first, and then we'll get that set up. If you haven't seen this before, this is my line boring machine that I made, and there's a build series on the channel if you're interested to see how I made that. I've also had to make an adapter to adapt my centering cone from a 40mm shaft down to a 30mm shaft. So I've got my alignment cone sat in the top, just centralise that, and in the bottom got my alignment cone as well. Doesn't help when the hole's a bit oval, but it's lined up on either side, and it looks like there's an equal gap between there and there. Can't see very well on the camera, but so I think that'll be alright. There's them little legs to weld on there to bolt onto that bearing. That's be a bit of box section welded onto there. That'll be on a bit of box section and a bit of box section there as well. It's not ideal using box section, but it's just easy and it's what I've got. So I'll also tack a bit probably from there to there and there to there as well, just to hold them rigid. But I need plenty of space to be able to get in there to measure what my tool height is. So I've got all 4 of them bearings welded on now, and the bar still goes up and down, so it's not binding up, so that's good. I was a bit worried with it being in 2 halves that it might bind up, you know, if it wasn't quite accurate in the middle, but it seems to go up and down. Slide through the bearings all right. So the only thing is I can't get this bottom alignment cone out, so that's going to have to stop in there, because the bar either touches the floor first. I've just got that bit sat under it to hold it up. Either touches the floor just before I can get that alignment cone out. So top on and get that one out, I think. So what I'll do now is put that bit of pipe and that other bit of bar on the top with the bearing on, and work out where I'm going to mount that for where the line boring actual machine is going to sit. So that's that bit welded on. I've got that bit welded on to there, and then this bit welded onto there. So that should be rigid enough for that. It all turns. I'd have liked to have that on not as steep of an angle, but I couldn't because of, you know, where that's touching there. So I'm hoping that'll be all right. So before I forget, I've just taken them little grub screws out of them bearings, because if they wind themselves in and get stuck in one of them holes, then you end up in trouble. So I'm just taking them out. So I've got to lift this up onto the mounting bearing now. So it is pretty heavy because it's all made out of steel, which is not a problem if you're lifting it at normal heights, but when you're lifting it above your head, it might have to do it with a forklift. So I'll have a go, lift it by hand. If not, I'll get the forklift fired up. So I think we're about ready for a go now. I've got everything tacked on. I've tacked some other bits of bar in there just to help support that bearing, because that bearing might get quite a bit of force on it. So I'll put a tool in there and we'll try cutting that small one out first. The little tools that I have, I've got some new ones since these, but I don't think the geometry's quite right for line boring, but it's the only one I've got small enough to fit in this little bar in that little hole. So it seems to be working. I've got a little bit. I've just stopped now because I'm just a bit unsure. When I line the bar up, I use the alignment cone in that top hole, so that's bang in the middle of there. And the alignment cone in the bottom of there, I know that one's a little bit worn, but it's still in the middle that way. But then when you look at this, you can see how much more it's cutting out one side than it is out the other. But then when I measure it, the old hole measures, I know this is not very accurate, It's just a bit of, just to show you, when you measure from the edge of the old hole to the edge of there is like 46 mil. Then when you measure it from this side, it's only like 40 mil. So where my bar is now is like 45, 46-ish. So I suppose I don't know what's been done with that hole in the past. But it's just, yeah, I'm not quite sure why it's like that. Because I've used a centering cone on the top and a centering cone on the bottom, the bar has to be parallel, so I think I'm just going to carry on like it is. So we're having a little break from engineering today. We're combining. So we're just cutting some wheat. It's a Lexion 570. I'm on a John Deere 6155R. Right, so that's that one done. It actually worked pretty well, did that. I'm not too concerned of the size because I'm making a new pin anyway. So it measures about 40.2 millimeters, but it's easier making the pin to match the hole size than it is to make the hole out to like 41 mil. So I'm going to leave that as it is. So I'll move on to the top one now. The only problem with the top one is there's a lot more travel. You know, that one it's only going through that much, this one it's going through that much, but the hydraulic pipe is nearly touching there. So I'm hoping if I add my little extender onto the top, I'm hoping it's not going to touch on there, and then that'll give me some more clearance in there. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think because I don't have much travel left before the shaft goes into the bearing, if I put this on, this is going to touch the bearing before the tool gets all the way through the hole. So I think I'm going to probably have to turn this down as well to smaller than 30mm. So then that can run through the bearing. It should break through the bottom of the hole before the shaft comes all the way through the bearing, because I've got that depth of bearing for it to go through, so it should be all right for that. It's just that's going to touch first. So when that hole is low enough to break through the bottom of there, the shaft is halfway through the bearing, so I am going to have to turn this down a little bit so it'll fit inside that bearing. So that's that now turned down. I had to take a bit off the end of the grub screws as well, so the grub screws are flush when they're tight. So I can put that on there now, tighten that up, and then put the pipe back on, and then I should have enough clearance in there to be able to run that all the way through there. I've got that back together, and now I've got plenty of clearance in there. Trouble is now I've run out of clearance there, and my hole that I drilled in the bar is still not high enough. Look, that's where that hole is. It should be there. So that hole should be there, so I can't go up anymore because of that. So what I need to do now is drill a new hole in the bar there, and another hole in the side for the grub screw. But the trouble is, I can't get the bar out with the bearings on. Right, so what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to take that back out again, put it back as it was. I'm going to do these bottom two holes first, get these sorted out, and then I can take these bearings off. And then I'm thinking I might be able to get this shaft out and leave these two bearings on, drill a new hole where I need the hole to be, and then do that top on last. So I'll worry about that later. I'll do these two now. So I've been all the way through that one. It's not got the hole round again yet, so I'll have to take a bit more out. So then the hole is properly round, probably enough to get rid of that lip there. So I've got my little measuring contraption clamped on, so I'm just going to move the tool out 1mm depth of cut, so we're doing 2mm altogether. because it's only such a little tool, I don't want to take too much out and chip the insert, because them inserts are quite delicate. So this bottom one is quite badly chewed up. It looks like there's a bit of something stuck in the side there. It's quite hard and it's just taking a chunk out of the insert. So I might have to see if I can chisel that bit out. And then I'll have to change the insert, change it round. So I've just chiseled that bit out. You can see it's something not very nice. It's stuck in the back there. Hopefully there's nothing else nasty stuck in there. So both of them are now cut out to about 57mm. It's supposed to be 50mm. So there's still a little bit at the back of there that hasn't cleaned up, but it's like a hole, so I'd have to take quite a bit more out to get that cleaned up. So I think that'll do for them. So I'll take the bar out as much as I can. I don't think I can get it all the way out unless I chop a bit off the bottom. And I'll build them back up with weld and then bore them back out to 50mm. So I'm going to run round there, this little welder, to build them back up again. I think I can reach near enough all the way around. It's just, I could have done with this out, but to get it out I'll have to jack it up another 5 or 6 inches, which I didn't really want to have to do, but I think I'm going to have to do. It's just going to be too tight otherwise with that still in there. So I've got it jacked up a bit. I haven't managed to get the bar all the way out, but I've got jacked up enough to get the cone off, and enough space for me to be able to weld in there now, hopefully. So I'm going to start and build them up with weld now. I'll do the bottom one first, then cover that one over, and then do the top one, so I'm not getting splatter on the weld I've already done. So I've got one runner weld around there. It was a bit difficult reaching in that side. I've done like just a weave vertical up. So I'm just not bothered what it looks like. I just need to get it built up. But I think I'll have to do another run because there's not quite enough there. So I'll do another run over the top of that now. So I've been around both of them now twice, and then around the top. It doesn't look very pretty, but I've just built it up best I can, trying to reach in. So there should be plenty there to machine that back down to 50mm now. So once that's cooled down, I'll put the bar back in. So I've just had to drill into the bar a little bit with a bigger drill so that the tool will go further in, like that one is. So set it up, I'll just do a rough measurement first. As long as the tool is sticking out less than 5mm, because it's a 40mm bar and we need a 50mm hole, we should be alright. And then, so I'll do a cut like that, and then I'll measure it and then move the tool out using this to get the accurate measurement. Now to measure the hole, I'm just using these spring calipers. Just put them in, rest one side on your finger, and then just keep winding them out just to say so it's touching. It's not easy. And then transfer that across onto the calipers, verniers. 47.775 or 50. So a bit more to take out yet. So I've just done the bottom one as well. I didn't film it because you've already seen me do that one. That one measures about bang on the same as what that one does. So happy with them two. I think I'll just grind that off the top and the bottom. But yeah, that'll do for them two. So I'm gonna work out how to do this one now. So with this top one, I think what I'm going to do is just put the tool in, cut through as far as I can before the pipe runs into there, before that runs into there, and then put this in afterwards, and hopefully the bar will be far enough down so I can get this in. If not, I'll have to make a short one of these. What I should have done really is probably got a longer pipe made, but I wanted the hose to be as short as possible, so then it's not got the risk of kinking the hose or twisting it. So that's why that's only 200mm long. So I've got run through there as far as I dare. It was starting to sort of put a funny bend in the pipe, and the hose. So what I'll do now is take that off and see if I can get that other little adapter in there, just to get through the last little bit. So I've got that in there. I don't think I've damaged the tool. So hopefully that'll cut nicely through the rest of that now. Right, so we've got most of the way through there. It's not cut very nice, but just on the last bit, for some reason it jammed up. It's broken the tool and it's twisted me a bit of hose. But I think I'll be able to just diagram that last little bit out. There's only like 1 mil, 2 mil left. It seems to measure the same all the way down the bar, so I think that'll have to do. So every hole now is round. Them ones are back to 50 mil like it should be, and then these ones I'll just make a pin to suit the hole size, so I can start taking everything off again now, I think. But yeah, it'd be good if I could chamfer them and face them off, but I don't have a tool. Well, I did have, but I broke it for chamfering, so I'll just have to grind them off and they'll have to be right as they are. So we're going to move on to the back 2 pivots now. Hopefully these will be a bit more straightforward to do. So I'm going to centralise them up using these big alignment cones, and then tack the bearings on. I might get one leg on there, one leg on there, and then I might have to tack another bit of plate on here for the third leg to go onto. Same with the bottom one. Right, so I've got all my bearings mounted now, bar through. So I had to make some short stands for there because I was going to run out of bar to poke through the top bearing. So I've made some 30mm short ones of them, and I've got the longer ones in there, and a bearing on the bottom as well, so that should be well supported. So I think what I'm going to do is take the bar back out and re-drill them holes through to 12mm instead of 10mm, and then I can use these bigger tools, because the ones I was using before are just too light duty, they're too delicate. So I'll do that. I'll just drill that one out for this one and that one out for the bottom one. I won't drill them all out, Right, so I've got these holes drilled out to 12mm now, that one and that one down there I think. So I put a tool in, and what I've noticed now is that when it's barely taking a cut out of this side of the hole, but then when you get to the back of the hole, you can see in there it's going to be taking quite a big cut out. So somehow with my alignment cones I've managed to not get it aligned properly, and because there's a cap that goes on here with a seal on it, if I cut it out like it is now, the ball joint is going to be a couple of mil further back, which means the pin's going to be in a different place, which means the seal won't seal up properly. Plus it's, you know, it's not right, isn't that? So I don't really know why it's done that, but I'm going to have to take it off again and realign it, because that's going to be no good. Same with the top hole as well. If you put the tool in the top hole, you take a little cut off at this side and a big cut off at the other side. So somehow I've managed to not get it aligned properly. Right, so I'm starting again aligning the bar. I've taken all the bearings off. The way I'm going to align it this time is I'm going to use these caps that go on top of the bottom of there, and then I've adapted these that I made before for lining up a bore. So I've adapted them so they'll fit in there, because that's like a machined in a bit where the seal sits. So I've machined that down so that'll fit in there now. So then I can bolt this plate back onto there with this in the middle, and then that should mean that the bar is absolutely bang on where it needs to be. So now what I've realised is that these caps for the top are bigger than the ones from the bottom, because they're 55mm OD. No, it's not. What is it? It's that's an 80 OD and that's a 75 OD. So these caps are different. So I've got one that will fit there. That one that I put that one in, I've realised now that's another top one, so that won't fit in the bottom. But then these bottom ones are that badly worn that I can't do anything with them. I can't put, that won't fit in there because of that worn and knackered, both of them. So I'm going to have to sort these out now before I can do anything else. I don't think you can get new ones of these. When I tried to get new pins and bushes and what have you, these were listed on a parts list, but they didn't have them listed like as available, so I'm gonna have to sort these out. These, I could make some new ones, but it's gonna take a fair bit of time. So what I think I'm gonna do is just put it in the lathe, clean that up, maybe put 2 runs or few runs of weld in it, bore it back out so so it's a bush, so a seal will go in it, and I can use that to align the bar with. Actually, what I've just realised I can do with this, I didn't realise when I ordered these other seals, I ordered them all 70mm OD, and then some are 55 ID and some are 50 ID. So the bottom ones are 50 ID for the pin. But what I didn't realise is they must have been 65mm originally. Or measures about 65ish. So I can just bore them out to 70mm, put them seals in, so it saves me having to build them up a weld, just put a bigger seal in. So I think I'll do that. Still not brilliant. I don't know what I'm going to do with that one, because that one is absolutely mullered. Whether I make a new one, I'm not sure yet, but anyway, I'll worry about this one first, and then when I get this one done I can use this one to centralise my line bar, and then I can actually get on and get it line barred and put the new joints in. So when I started this job and I said I think it's going to be one of them jobs that I wish I never started, it's definitely turned into one of them jobs. So that's the bottom one barred out, and I've knocked that in there, so that should do to line the bottom up now. So it's fairly worn, the hole in the middle, that's why it looks oval, it's because it is, but that shouldn't matter. So I'll put that one under there now, that one in the top, and then put the bar through. Right, so I've got them bearings back on again now. I did have 4 on originally, but I've just put 1 in the middle this time, give me a bit more space. So I'll mount the line bar back on now. Put my tool in again and check that it cuts equal all the way around. It should do now, because I've lined it up. Can't not be in the middle. Got a bit too much movement. This is not rigid enough. I'll have to tack something else across somewhere. Right, we'll have another go. I've got that bit just tacked in. Hopefully that should keep it rigid. So there's that 3 and 3 stands. Right, so that's the first cut done, and it was taking an equal cut all the way around the top. You can see there's still all that wear in the front, so I'll have to do another cut a bit deeper. Take another mil out, probably. Another mil depth of cut, so it'll be 2 mil overall. Hopefully that'll be enough to get rid of that. So I've got the bottom one done. There's still a bit of wear there, but I'll have to clean that up with a die grinder, I think. I'll just weld over it. It looks like there is a crack from there across to that hole, which is not ideal, but I think it'll have to be alright. I can't do a lot with it without making a massive job for myself. So I've got the tool moved into the bottom one now, so we'll cut this one through the same. There's quite a bit more wear on this one. Right, so I've got the bottom one bored through now. I've got the bar taken out and the top bearing taken off. I've cleaned in there a little bit where it didn't quite cut it all out with a die grinder, clean that up. What I'll do now is take the grease nipples out, clean out them grease holes, one in the bottom. Then I think I'll warm all this lot up, because you can see where the two plates are joined together. There's big grease all stuck in between there, so if I warm it up it should hopefully melt all the grease out, and then when I weld it up, the grease shouldn't interfere with the weld too much. Probably won't weld over that bit very well, but the same with the top one. I'll give that a warm up, see if I can get all the grease out, and nice bit of preheat before I start welding it as well. So I've been around both of them now with weld. I think I'm going to have to do another layer. That one's nearly there. It might just about do, but there's nothing more annoying than line boring it through and realise you haven't got enough welding. So I think I'll put another layer over the top of that. That bottom definitely needs another layer. It's just quite tricky reaching in at that angle. I can feel there I haven't got enough in. So I'll do another round on both of them. Right, so I've been round twice on the top one. Doesn't look very pretty, but it should be right. I've avoided the grease holes there. There's 2 grease holes there. And I've been around 3 times on the bottom one. It's pretty difficult to get in on the bottom one, but I think I've got enough runs around it now, so put the bar back in and line bore it back through to size. So I've got the top one done. Just them two bits there are where the grease holes are, but it's cut out fairly nice as that. So I've got the tool moving into the bottom hole now, and we'll do a rough cut through that to start with, out to 70mm, and then we'll take it out to 75, or just a bit less than 75. Right, so I've got everything taken off, got them barred out, all the bearings and everything taken off. So when you measure it, it measures just slightly undersized, which is better than oversized. But I don't want these to be too tight, otherwise they'll bind up on the ball. So that one measures, well, I wanted it to be 0.07 of a millimeter undersized, so it's like a tight, it's a push fit, tight push fit. But it measures about 0.1 of a millimeter undersized. So what I'm going to do is just buff out a little bit with a sanding wheel, and then that should be a nice snug fit in there then. Same with the bottom one, I'll have to do the same with the bottom one, I think. So, but it's better being that way than it is oversized and then these end up being loose. So I've got that buffed round, that looks quite nice in there. So I'm going to pull this in now, that's the bottom race. I'm going to pull that in from underneath. I'm going to use that thing that I made for aligning everything with a bit of thready bar through it. And then a washer on the top and a nut, and then should pull in nice hopefully. So that's the bottom one in. So I'll do the same with the top one. Right, so that's the top half in. It is a little bit tight is the ball, but I think it'll be all right. It'll bed in. It's better being a little bit tight than loose. So there's that shim going there now. That goes in the top of there, and this top cap. But you see it's burred over where the seal goes, so I'll have to put that in the lathe and just take that burr out, and I can put a new seal in, and then the cap goes on the top. So I've just realised now that I've put the bottom one on the. I put the top one on the bottom. And this is the bottom one on the top. Well, they're both the same, apart from the seal is different size on the top than it is on the bottom. That's well, originally it would have been 55mm. The bottom is 50mm, and I put the 55mm seal on the bottom rather than on the top. So I'll just have to change them plates round. Right, so I've got them caps swapped around. There's a shim that goes in there, and that cap goes on the top. That bolt hole that wasn't very good I've tapped it out and there is still some threads in there, so I think that'll be enough to hold it on. So I'll put that on with some new bolts, and then that's that top one done. Right, so that one is all back together like it should be, like a new one again. So now same process to do with this one. I think I'll have to buff a bit out with a sanding wheel because it's just a bit too undersized. And then we'll, well, because this joint is like a rose joint, there's a split somewhere in this race. Can't see it, but if it's too tight, it'll nip up and then it'll nip onto the ball. So this one wants to be, just a nice sort of press fit. Right, so I've got that flush with a combination of pulling it in with a threaded bar and then knocking it as well. But the outer race that I was using, the old outer race is opened up slightly, so now I've got flush. This is catching on the side of there, so I'll have to find something same size as that, well, smaller than that, to fit on there, so just to get it in the rest of the way, and a couple of mil. So I've just put a Jubilee clip around that just to pull it up so I can use that again. Right, so that's in. Nice and tight, and the ball's still loose, so that's good. So just the caps to put on now. Bottom cap is pretty bad and there's nowhere for the seal to go anymore, so I think I'll have to put that in the lathe, clean it up, put a couple of runs of weld in the middle, and then bore it back out, so then I can put a new seal in it. Right, so I've decided with this, that's the top one. I machined that one out earlier so I can put a seal in there, but the bottom one, decided I'm not going to put a seal in that because this joint already has its own seal. So just to save a bit of time and a bit of machining, I'll just put that one on as it is. I'm not really sure whether they had seals in as original or not, because that badly chewed up. So that one, I machined it out bigger to put a bigger seal in, so I'm not sure whether it had one in originally. But anyway, I'm going to put one in that one, but not in that one. and I've skimmed both of them off and then countersunk them a bit deeper. So we'll get them bolted on, and then I'll have to work out what these need for shims, because especially on that one, that is about 10mm less than what that gap is there. Right, so I'm going to start making the top centre pin now. So I'm going to use this bit of 65mm EN8 right round, and then these are the dimensions that I need for the pin. So there's quite a few steps on it, and then this end bit will be threaded. So I think I'll centre it first and put the tailstock in, just because it's not held in the chuck bar very much. Then we'll start machining that down. Right, so that is all the diameters of the pin machined down. That was what the old pin is. I don't think this is the original pin. I think someone's made this one as well. And what they've done on the end, they've put an M30B 3.5mm thread. But what I've realised is my little threading tool is not big enough to do a 3.5mm pitch. It won't go deep enough. The other tool that I do have, I've knackered the insert in it, and I haven't got any more inserts. So the way around that is, what I'm going to do is thread it with an M30B 2mm pitch thread, which will be better anyway, because you can get them tighter, less likely to come undone. So I can thread that with my little threading tool, with it only being a 2mm pitch. It's not as deep. So what I'll have to do is just put a thread relief in there, so I don't end up running into that and breaking everything. So I'll put a little thread relief in, and then we'll get the lathe set up, ready to cut that thread. Right, so I think we're about ready. I've got a thread relief cut in there, got my tool set up, got my speed set to, well, PT1W, so we're on BT1W. Then I've got my thing, my little, I don't know what you call it, all my numbers are worn off, so I've sort of marked them back on, and the gauge on there is worn off, but I've got it saved on my phone, so I know that I need to click it in at either 1 or 8, so I think I'll probably go for number 1. So when that number comes round to that mark there, click the threading lever in, and then it should do a 2mm pitch thread across there. So my thread cutting experience is pretty limited, so hopefully this comes out alright, because if it doesn't, I've just spent all that time making a pin and buggered it. So I've got that much cut, seems to be cutting alright. The only trouble is I don't know how deep I need to be going. I haven't got a thread gauge that size, and I couldn't get the nut on there first to thread it on, so let's see if I can measure into the bottom of the threads. So I've gone over that a few more times, and now the nut fits bang on. So yeah, pleased with that. So not sure what I'm going to do with the top yet. Well, I need a plate welding on because there's 2 bolts that hold the pin in. Standard, them bolts have snapped off, so I'll have them to remove as well before I can do that. But yeah, that's that done for now anyway. Right, so that's the pin that fits in there. It's a nice tight, like hammer fit. You have to knock it in with a hammer to get it in, so that's a nice tight fit. So now I've just got the pin to make for the bottom hole. Now that should be easy to make because I already have some 50mm bright round. So all I need to do is drill a hole in the bottom of the pin, tap it out with an M20 bolt, and then make a plate on the top. Should be a bolt in there. It looks like that's snapped off, that holds a pin in, and then there'd be a bolt in there that snapped off, and another one there. So it'll be the next fun job trying to get them out. This would be difficult to drill a new hole because of this bit. So I'll try and get them out. That one will be all right. So I'm absolutely amazed with this. I heated the bolt up like red hot, the actual bolt itself, and I've welded a washer on. I welded a nut on the top, and it's actually coming out. I didn't think it would do, but it's coming undone. That one might be a bit more tricky because it's under the surface. So whether I can weld a washer on it without welding it in, I don't know. But anyway, at least this one's coming out. That one out. Try this one now. So this other one, I managed to, I tried putting a bit of weld on it to start with, and then it welded the bolt to the side. So I diagrammed it out. I've diagrammed around it. I've drilled it, put a stud extractor in, and it's actually coming out. So that's saved a lot of work if I got them 2 out. So that's it. I'll countersink that a little bit, clean it up, and then I can reuse them. So the old weld on a nut and weld on a washer and nut trick has worked again. It's coming out now, is that one. So I've made some new ones of them now, so I'm going to chop them off and then weld these new ones on, top and bottom. Take a bit of slack out of them, they're fairly slack. When that one dropped off, it chopped through my wire for grinder, so now the electric's gone off. So that's a pin. So I need to work out what shims it needs now, between whether I put more in the top or more in the bottom, to work that out. So we're about ready to go back together now. I've got them welded on, got the bottom pin made, that's the top pin. They're all done. So the reason that that bottom hole is smaller than the top hole is because that shoulder on the pin tightens down onto the top of the joint. Then it's supposed to have a spacer in the bottom, so then when the pin goes through and you tighten the big nut on the nut up at the bottom, that shoulder and that spacer clamp onto that ball. Then when it turns, it's the ball that turns rather than the pin. That's why, also when someone put it together before, they'd missed out that spacer, so there was nothing to shim it, and then that's why they'd had to weld them bits of plate in there to stop it all slopping up and down. But that's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be nipped onto that ball, and then that joint is what stops everything moving up and down. So when it's back together, it should be a lot better than it was. Right, so it's my dad's going to come and give me a hand pushing it back together. Be a bit safer than me trying to do it by myself. So it's ready to go back together now. Right, so that is both the pins in now. She's standing on her own four wheels again. So what I've made to go on the bottom of that pin is a washer with a recess in it, so that when I pull it down, if the pin comes proud of there, it doesn't matter, it'll still tighten up. And then I've done the same, made the same for the bottom one, so that'll go under there, and tighten that down, and then when the pin pulls through, it's pulling it tight. So I'll put them on now. Right, I've got the pipes back on. They were bloody awkward. I just need to bleed the brakes. I'll have to get my dad again to give me a hand to bleed the brakes. Wiring loom to go back on. And I think that's it for under there. And then I've just got these pins to go back into the steering, prop shaft to go back on. And I think that's it. I forgot, I should have painted these bits before I put it back together, but I forgot. So I'll have to see if I can get in there with some red oxide, paint that. So that is finally back together. Everything back on how it should be. So you can't really see in there, but I'll just turn my light on. So that's that pin back in and the two bolts in the top. And then the nut underneath. When I did that, you can see it's a bit on a funny angle, but this has been welded back in before, so I think that's maybe been maybe slightly twisted because there's a bit of a gap there and not much of a gap there. When I made that pin, I should have put this step slightly further down the pin and then made that space at the bottom a little bit less, and then it would have been more in the middle. But it's all right. So I am absolutely sick to death of this thing now. 10 to 10 on a Saturday night. I'm absolutely blathered. Everything was a battle, whether it was the prop shaft bolts or whether it was the hydraulic pipes in the front. It's just everything has been a battle with it. But anyway, it's done now. So I'm going to take it out of the workshop because I'm sick of looking at it. Right, so that'll do for tonight. I'll clean all this up another day. So I hope you've enjoyed watching the videos because the job has been an absolute nightmare. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.